Hey guys, Trevor with Shadow Systems. It's Technical Tuesday, and today we're going to talk about something that's going to sound pretty boring and mundane and unimportant, but it actually may be a little valuable for you. It's very practical, I can tell you that. So it's loading magazines. Okay, don't click to the next video. I'm actually going to show you something that's going to be a little helpful. All right. Two things I want to talk about with loading magazines. One is just making it easier. You can watch new shooters, or actually many shooters, and once they get to like round number 11 or 12 or 13, it starts to get hard to load the magazine, some more than others. So I'm going to show you a trick to very quickly solve that problem. Super easy. And then the other one is just about loading your magazines for maximum reliability, how you maintain them so that the magazines you bet your life on are definitely going to work for you. And the magazine is kind of the most common failure point in a firearm. So that's something we should talk about. Okay, first, just loading the magazine. All right, this is a brand new Magpul magazine, brand new out of the box. People sometimes say Magpul magazines are a little harder to load. I understand why they say that. It does get a little more difficult when you get to the higher round counts into the mag. But there's other things about Magpul magazines that we really like, notably that they're easy to disassemble and clean, and that they have this really nice grasping surface for emergency magazine removal. Those are really nice features, not on a Glock mag. So we use these mags. So I'm going to go ahead and load this thing, and I'm going to put about 10 rounds in, and it's going to be really easy as I go, and then all of a sudden it's going to get kind of hard. This happens to everybody. And I find, by the way, I do this, I like push one thumb with the other. It just makes it a lot faster and easier, so I kind of get two thumbs going at once. Okay, I think that's about 10 rounds. So about here, it's going to start to get a little stiffer. This is all you have to do. Take your thumb, push on the top round, and hit the magazine against the palm of your hand, okay? All of that lead stacked up on top of the spring is like a giant hammer. When you do that, it compresses the spring all the way to the bottom and then some, even with a light tap. And that then kind of sets all the rounds, and it's going to get much easier as you put those last few rounds in. In fact, okay, that's 15 rounds. Pretty tight. I bet you I could almost get 16 in a magazine by doing that. Let's see. And there's 16 rounds. Okay, so that's how much power you have by doing that trick. Back to 15. So as you load the magazine, if it gets a little stiff, just push on the top round with your thumb, hit the palm of your hand, it'll set all the rounds, it'll send the spring to the bottom, and you'll have room for the remaining rounds of the magazine. That's the first little tip. The second one is this. After you load a magazine, take it and just tap it against your palm, okay? And a lot of people already know about this, but what this does is it sends all the rounds to the back of the mag. So as you're loading, they could be a little forward, a little backward, or whatever. By doing that at the end of your loading process, you're just ensuring that everything is seated to the very, very back of the magazine, okay? And that just ensures that the rounds are all positioned in the same way as they're engaged by the slide and pushed into the chamber. Okay, so that's the first little tip, or the first and second little tips related to loading magazines. Do the thumb tap deal if you get too much spring pressure, and then tap them all to the back as you finish loading. Okay, that's the first thing I want to show you. The second thing I want to show you is just how you kind of take care of your magazines and ensure that they're going to run when you need them. It's really kind of about cleaning, okay? So if I go to the range and, you know, I'm in a rainstorm and all my gear gets muddy, and there's only one thing that I can clean when I get back to the house before I start carrying, do I clean the gun, do I clean the mag? I always would clean the mag. The guns normally will run fine. It's the magazine that's going to be the weak link, okay? You have to understand, when the spring is all the way down at the bottom of the magazine, it's a mess. So it's not this orderly process of neat little stacking of coils. I mean, it gets into a twisted little ball. So if there's dirt and mud and stuff rubbing against those spring coils as they're unwinding, it can really disrupt things. If there's dirt or mud along the sidewall of the magazine, as the rounds are rolling as they go up the magazine, they'll hit that rock or that piece of dirt, and it'll be a barrier, and it can slow down or stop the movement of the rounds coming up. So clean magazine, super important. So this is why we like the Magpul mags. So depress the detent, and out comes the spring and follower. Okay, so here's what I do every time, and it's really fast. Get yourself a cloth. Microfiber is great. I shouldn't be using a Glock tool. Pencil would probably be better, but you just take your little cloth, you stick it about halfway up, and pull it the rest of the way through, and it takes everything out super fast. You can also use a rod and reel cloth. It has a little bit of silicone in it, which, I understand the risk of adding lubricant to the magazine, but maybe it smooths things up a little bit. Some guys will do that, certainly in the competitive world, they'll use a little silicone. But a dry cloth is all you really need. You'll notice as I wipe the spring, I'm kind of doing every coil. This part's sort of a pain, but it's really important to do that. And then the last thing is just make sure that the follower is seated on the spring and that the base plate is as well, the detent on the bottom. Okay, so reinsert and reassemble, and your magazine is back in business. And this is something I do even if I don't drop mags on the ground. If I'm going to the range and practicing, the mags that I end up carrying that day, even if they just got shot but never dropped, I'll still clean them super fast just because. One final note, if magazines get super dirty and there's a lot of carbon that accumulates, it can sometimes accumulate just above the follower, sort of in this area, and actually restrict the height of the follower, meaning it doesn't quite get all the way up as high as it's supposed to. It's usually up high enough to still have adequate pressure on the last round, because the follower is all the way down here right now. The place where it might affect you is in your magazine locking the slide back after the last round is fired. So all I can say is if you put like tons and tons of rounds on one mag or something and it's really black and stuff at the top, just pushing this thing through is probably not enough to get that off. So just look at it, and you might need to get a toothbrush or something. The only reason it matters, again, is it can keep this follower down a little tiny bit, which can just place less pressure on the slide release and then not lock it to the rear when the last round is fired. So if you're having that problem with your gun, it's possible that there's just a ton of carbon built up in the top of your mags, okay? So that's kind of like the short little item for today, and I realize it's not super exciting, but it's pretty practical. As always, call us if you have questions about this or anything else, and we really love talking to people, so give us a ring. Thank you.